get started. This is Monica Gonzalez, Senior Program Director for Enterprise Community Partners Gulf Coast Office. I'm in charge of our capacity building and technical assistance region. Just a little heads up, I tried to find the quietest room in our office, but we are surrounded by construction, so I apologize if you can't hear me or you hear some construction noise in the background, but I'll do my best to try and talk loud, and if you're having any problems, feel free to let me know. There is a Q&A box on the lower right-hand corner, so if any time throughout the webinar you have a question, feel free to type it in there or let me know, Monica, we can hear you, and then we'll try and figure out a solution, but just beware there is happening in the background, there's beeping, and I can't really find another quieter place here, so I apologize for that. Thank you for joining me this morning for the review of the 2017 Section 4 request for letters of interest. Some of these slides will be repeat from yesterday if you joined that webinar, so I apologize, but I just wanted to make sure you really understood the process. Today I'm more going to be giving an overview of the process, talking a little bit about the priorities we're looking for here in the Gulf Coast, and jump into a little bit of what's expected if you're invited for a full proposal and if you're awarded for a grant, because I think it's only fair that everyone understands what you're really in for, because this is a federally funded grant, so there is a lot of compliance, so I just want to make sure everyone is aware of that. We do have another enterpriser with us this morning, Kate Diffenderfer. She is the Senior Grant Specialist. She really supports the Gulf Coast region along with other markets. She'll be on the phone in case I don't know an answer. I may defer to Kate, or we may have to get back to you. Once again, there's a little Q&A box on the right-hand corner. Feel free to type in a question anytime. And this session is being recorded, so it will be posted later and for everyone. So let's jump in. And just like I mentioned, this is a federally funded grant, so I can really not I can just provide general guidance. I can't provide too specific of guidance. For example, I can't tell you what program area you should apply for, but I can give a general overview. So I just wanted to make sure that everyone was clear about that. So most of you may be familiar with Enterprise, but for those of you who are not, Enterprise was founded by Jim and Patty Rouse over 30 years ago with the vision that every person should have a well-designed, affordable home that is committed to opportunity, good schools, access to transportation, jobs, and health care. We accomplish our mission by focusing on affordable housing and community development programs, policy, and financing. Shortly after Hurricane Katrina, we opened a permanent office in the Gulf Coast, based in New Orleans, that serves all of Louisiana, Mississippi, and Alabama Gulf Coast. Since 2005, we have invested over $400 million in grants, loans, and equity to support the development of over 10,000 affordable homes in the region. So let's dive into this funding opportunity that's currently available through HUD, the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development Section 4 Capacity Building Program. As you know, there are very few capacity building grant dollars available, so this is really a good opportunity for your organization if you meet the threshold requirements and have a program or project that fits within the program areas. A very highly competitive process. This grant program is intended to build the capacity of community development corporations, as CDCs, housing development organizations, known as CHODOs, and organizations serving Native American populations who carry out community development and affordable housing activities for the benefit of families and persons of low income, which is defined as 80% AMI or below. These are threshold requirements for applying. If you do not meet the threshold for applying, we will not score your LOI. So please review these thresholds carefully. Just so you can be aware, CHODO designation is not granted by Enterprise, but is related to your home funds and the participating jurisdictions such as the city, the state, the county, the parish. We will talk about CDC definition in a while, but I just want to stress that you should have CHODO designation prior to applying for, if that's how you're applying for these grants, this threshold, prior to applying for the LOI. In addition to these requirements, Enterprise is also requiring applicants to have demonstrated staff capacity. Basically, the applicant cannot solely rely on volunteers, donated staff, board members, or consultants unless they have an established relationship with a fiscal agent or sponsor. If your organization falls into this category, please carefully review the LOI guidance. So I use a lot of words in this slide, but I just want to talk a little bit about the CDC definition. For this of this grant, here is the HUD Section 4 definition of Community Development Corporation. Once again, this is not a specific designation or certification, but these are the characteristics an organization must possess in order to be considered a CDC by HUD. Please carefully review these. I do want to point out a couple of things in this definition. At the second bullet point, it talks about board composition. So your board should really have a diverse board that's composed of residents, business and civic leaders. That can include faith-based community development corporations. So just make sure your board is diverse, has a diverse representation. And then also another important characteristic of a CDC, according to HUD, is the community you serve. How you define a community could be a neighborhood, various neighborhoods, a city, a county, or metropolitan area. Or for rural, it may be a neighborhood or neighborhoods or town, village or county, but it cannot be the entire state. So you really want to carefully review the definition. There's some more information in the LOI, but if you're really having any questions whether you need the CDC definition or if you're CHODO, please feel free to contact me because we don't want you to go through the process unless you meet these threshold requirements. So if you have any questions, once again, you can type it into the Q&A at the bottom, or you can reach out to me afterwards, and I'll have contact information at the end of the presentation. So here's a general overview of the process. This is a two-step process. I'll emphasize you can only submit one application per organization. You will not receive any additional points if your application addresses multiple program areas. Often we see organizations do this on their LOI. It's not a strong LOI. Remember, you are only limited to 3 pages, so make sure you are presenting your strongest program or project in the appropriate program area, as it is a highly competitive process. The past couple of years, the Gulf Coast has received over 35 LOIs, some over 40, and we have funded between 8 to 12 grants each year, ranging from $20,000 to $75,000. Usually, we invite less than half the LOI submitted back for the full application process, and I expect that to be the same this year. So if you're thinking of applying, just look at the anticipated award range and think about the range that we do here in the Gulf Coast. Average award is expected to be $40,000. If you have a current Section 4 grant, you can apply again this year. But just aware that you should be applying for different costs. You should not be, and really show a different capacity building goal. Or doing it for the same program area, how is this different from your previous Section 4 grant? So I just want you to be aware. You can apply, but just be diligent on what you're applying for. Also, when considering the grant, when applying, please consider the grant period of performance. Grant period performance will begin September 1st, 2017. Usually a 12 to 24-month period. The grant cannot cover any work or any expenses prior to September 1st, 2017. It's a cost reimbursement grant, so you'll have to show expenses and back documentation. And if any of that backup documentation is prior to September 1st, it cannot be covered by this grant. So please make sure that whatever you're budgeting for this grant does not begin until after September 1st. And all these documents are available online at the website. So I definitely understand that operating dollars for an organization is always a need, but this grant can't be looked at it from that lens. The purpose is capacity building. So when you're putting together your LOI, make sure it is addressing the capacity building needs of your organization. So what are the needs or the challenges your organization may be having? Make it more efficient and effective. I think I often get asked questions, so what do you mean by capacity building? So I pulled this definition from the National Council of Nonprofits because I think it's a really good representative and holistic way of looking at capacity building. So capacity building is whatever is needed to bring a nonprofit to the next level of operational, programmatic, financial, or organizational maturity. So it more effectively and efficiently advance its mission into the future. Capacity building is not a one-time effort to improve short-term effectiveness, but a continuous improvement strategy towards the creation of a sustainable and effective organization. It's really an investment into the effectiveness and future sustainability of a nonprofit. The various applications we see year after year really addresses this, so keep this in mind when putting your LOI together. I want to know your challenges as an organization and how these funds will support the organization's future. So if you're struggling with thinking about your capacity building goal or your impact, I would highly suggest you refer back to this definition. So here are the 6 program areas for this year's LOI. And designing sustainable communities, equitable transit-oriented development, health and housing, affordable housing production and preservation, organizational sustainability, and rural and Native American initiatives. Although I will be focusing on the Gulf Coast priorities that are listed on the link of the LOI, I just want to stress that we will accept LOIs from any of these 6 program areas. We are not limiting to the program areas listed in the Gulf Coast Market Priority link. And it was sent out yesterday to clarify this. If you have a project or program that falls into any of these program areas, meet threshold requirements, grant funds will help build the capacity of the organization, please feel free to submit a letter of interest. I would suggest to carefully review the LOI and remember that the examples listed there are not an exhaustive list, but mainly just an overview. Each organization is different, so needs will be different. You make sure what you're proposing fits within the general description of the program area and clearly identifies your capacity building goal and impact to low-income households. I would say some of the program areas definitely overlap, and your program area may touch various program areas, but should only apply under one program area. You can only apply under one program area. Make sure you're connecting the program area that best fits your project and make a clear connection. So once again, we are not limiting ourselves to the Gulf Coast Market Priority link, but we will accept an LOI in any of those 6 program areas. I'm not really going to talk a lot about the rural eligibility, but I just wanted to point out that there is a tool to help determine if your grant activities qualify as rural. So there is a link. I will be sending out this PowerPoint once again after the presentation, probably within 24 hours. So I know I may sound like a broken record, but we really understand the challenges organizations are facing with the current funding environment. Funds are shrinking, but the need isn't, and many times it's growing. So as your organization thinks through long-term organizational sustainability, what can help improve your financial health is the main focus of this priority area for us. This goes back to the capacity building definition. Section 4 funds can help your organization withstand the impacts of a changing funding environment and increase its impact. This is really an investment in the infrastructure of the organization. It can be the staff, it can be board, it can be different systems or strategies. Once again, this is not an exhaustive list, but some general examples. There may be something not on this list here, but could have an impact on your long-term sustainability. And if that is the case, please feel free to apply for that. So just really think about, is there a training or some technical assistance that could help your organization get to the next level? Is maybe software, maybe accounting software or asset management software that is lacking and causing the organization to miss an opportunity to be more efficient? Executive director, your CFO, or other senior management planning to leave or retire within the next year. Section 4 is a good opportunity to look at succession planning to help with your organization's transition. We have seen many organizations struggle after leadership change, so when there's not a plan in place. So succession planning is an important tool to help weather a transition. If you're thinking about expanding to a new neighborhood or community, do you have a strategic plan or market in place to help with that transition? Once again, another good use of Section 4 funds to help bring a consultant and work with your organization for this expansion of your business model or this shift in your business model. Once again, these are just some examples, but you're really looking at how you can really increase the impact and the effectiveness of your organization for this program area. So affordable housing production and preservation is another priority area for us. And this is really focusing on federally funded projects. For the priority area, I want to be very clear. I want to strengthen CDC and CHOTA capacity to meet federally funded production commitments. It can be new construction, rehab, owner-occupied rehab, homeownership, or rental. This priority area is meant for existing commitments such as home, LIHTC, CDBG, or some other federal source. For the program area, we will only fund projects that already have a commitment. We are not asking you to submit documentation at this point, but if we do have any questions and need additional documentation, we will ask. This is not meant for projects who are thinking about applying, but you must already have a firm commitment or award from the city, state, county, parish, or whoever the participating jurisdiction is. Once again, this program area is focused on making sure a developer of affordable housing as an organization has the skills and systems in place to get the project completed and operational through the compliance period. This also looks at making the connection between health and housing, and we also are looking for LOIs that look at long-term operations of a project by benchmarking energy and water efficiency. This can determine improvements that can be made for long-term savings and preservation. I just want to emphasize, a commitment must be in place of federal funds if you're applying under this program area only. And the third program area of priority for us, building and designing sustainable communities with a focus on disaster recovery work. In the region, we know there's a continued threat of natural disasters. From hurricanes to flooding to tornadoes, no one is immune. But there are always ways an organization can be better prepared and your buildings more resilient. For this program area, we want to focus on the ongoing disaster recovery work and thinking through how to make communities or organizations and buildings more resilient. This could be a disaster plan for your organization. What would you do as an organization if another disaster hit? How would you deal with it in your portfolio? So there's a way to think of bringing a consultant to help you think through that planning. It could be working to develop new plans, new building plans that take into consideration site design, stormwater management, and wind hazard resistance, or how to apply resilient standards on a broader scale, like a neighborhood planning. Once again, these are just examples. Also look at the 2015 Enterprise Green Communities criteria, which has some great guidance and strategies on incorporating resilience measures. Once again, that is the 2015 Enterprise Green Communities criteria, which is available online. Lots of organizations are doing disaster recovery work following the floods from last year and tornadoes earlier this year. So this is a great opportunity to use capacity building resources to better prepare or help in this recovery process. As I said at least 10 times this morning, Section 4 is a capacity building program. These program funds are not intended to be a project gap filler, but are intended to fund activities to improve the capacity of the organization and serve low-income households at 80% MI or below. Here's the most common list of examples of expenses from Section 4 grantees. It could be your staff salaries, which can include fringe benefits. It could be consultants, as long as they are carrying out activities that fall within the program areas of the RFP. Remember, consultants are expected to be chosen through an full and open competition. It could also be staff and board training. Topics can include, but are not limited to, financial management, asset management, board development. Section 4 can also support training fees and travel-related expenses to these trainings. It could be computer hardware, software. It could be pre-development costs for architects or engineers, or other professional services like a development consultant, an IT consultant, or some accounting services. There is additional guidance in the full document. Once again, these are just the most common uses of Section 4. I also want to talk about some whoops, if I can, I also want to talk about some examples of ineligible costs. Once again, this is not an exhaustive list, but a list of most costs that are not eligible. I'll say the one that we get a lot of questions about, and there was a lot of questions yesterday on the webinar, is construction. Construction cannot be paid for unless they have a HUD environmental clearance. Remember, these funds have to build the organization's capacity, so you have to take that into consideration. Also, startup costs for a new business line are not eligible. I just want to make a clarification that expansion of an existing program is totally fine. So, for example, if you do homeownership but are now looking at doing rental housing, that is not considered a new business line, so that can be supported. It becomes ineligible when you're getting into a whole new business line, which when it triggers ineligibility. The thing Section 4 cannot pay for is mergers, so any legal or related costs of two organizations merging are not eligible. You have a program and you're thinking about doing stipends or gift cards or some kind of incentives for residents to participate, that is not allowed by Section 4. No food is also allowed by Section 4. And also note that any advocacy or fundraising activities should never be charged with Section 4. So if you're thinking of hiring a fundraiser or grant writer or someone to develop a fund development plan, these cannot be supported by Section 4. If you have a question about a potential cost, please do not hesitate to ask in the Q&A box on the right-hand corner or email me later on today. That's a little bit on the scoring criteria. As I mentioned earlier, applications must meet all threshold requirements. If they do not, we will not be reviewing them. Applications will be reviewed by enterprise staff, which includes local staff and some other national staff. Questions will be based on a 5-point scale. I know I keep on saying this, but ironically, the one criteria that organizations fall short on year after year, no matter how many times I stress it in these application workshops, is the capacity building criteria, looking at criteria 1, bullet point 2. These funds are not a gap filler, but a capacity builder. I understand that these funds will help sustain staff. So think about how you can, you're addressing your capacity building needs. Strong LOIs are able to articulate the capacity building goal and show measurable impact or outcomes. For example, stronger LOIs can say Section 4 support will help us double our production and show how that is being done. If you're having trouble with your financials or with your audits, you've had a bad audit, a good outcome could be a clean audit for a year and clearing all findings, or getting accounting software, thinking about how you can reduce processing invoice time. So maybe you will process invoice 10 days faster or something like that. But I think making that clear connection, showing the impact and actual outcome, makes your LOI stronger. I would really appreciate LOIs that outline the challenges that you're trying to address. So please refer back to the capacity building definition we talked about earlier. Other thing that is new to us is racial equity as part of the scoring criteria. Last year it was bonus points, but this year we are actually scoring it. So I understand most people are maybe doing something informally or formally, or maybe this is a program, an area organization wants to improve. The full equity definition is in the LOI. I just want to be clear that this is more than just the population you're serving. We're really looking at thinking through an organization's internal efforts and programming. So make sure you're including any concrete strategies or intentional actions of the organizations to address racial equity. And just a little quick review. So you need to complete the LOI narrative first. Once it's completed, then you can go on and do your LOI online submission form. The online submission form cannot be saved, so it has to be done once after you've completed your narrative piece. I also recommend that you try to get in your LOI early, whether that's a day early or the morning of, because we all know sometimes we can have computer issues and technology issues, so please try to get your LOI in early if possible. Again, here's a list of different online resources we have, so feel free to just look at those. You can download them if you have any questions. I'm going to talk a little bit about what I think what I know some of the requirements are of the full application and grant award, just so you understand what you're getting to. So I have grantees tell me this is either the easiest federal grant award they have to deal with or the most difficult. We'll say a lot of times there's a lot of paper, but as your grant manager, which I would be if you're awarded a grant, I just want to ensure you have the documentation and that if you're ever audited, you will be able to successfully pass that audit. If you're invited for a full proposal, you will also need to complete our questionnaire for subrecipients of federal funding. Basically, we want to understand your financial policies and procedures, make sure your timesheets are compliant, and so on. This request is based on federal requirements, which requires enterprise to review and evaluate risk associated with potential grantees prior to making awards. That makes us better understand your ability to manage federal funds. And if for some reason there's some things that we find maybe not be strong through that questionnaire, we will definitely help you with some technical assistance. So I don't want to scare you away too much, but I just want you to be aware of some of the things we'll be looking for. Another thing we will be looking for is match. And we have a preferred 3-to-1 ratio, although it's not required, it is our preferred ratio. And that match reflects private sector dollars received by your organization that is being funded for the same project or support the same project or program being funded with the Section 4 grant. So eligible private sector funds could include donations from individuals, foundation, or corporate grants, or it could even be a tenant portion of the rents you're collecting. Match cannot be any federal fund commitment such as home or CDBG. Those are not eligible match. And also we talked a little bit about consultant guidance, just making sure you're having an open and full competition process if that's what you're looking to use Section 4 dollars for. A couple of things I don't have on here, but I would recommend that your organization looks into is making sure you're registered and active with the SAM system, the System for Award Management. You will be required to have an active number and registration. And once again, if you're looking for that, the link is in the LOI. And also making sure your organization has a DUNS number. Sometimes these can take a couple of weeks or a few weeks. So I would just recommend to make sure your organization has those in place. And if don't, to start the process of getting one, because it could, like I mentioned, it could take some time. So I just recommend that you look at the LOI for those directions. And just real quickly, if you're selected for a grant, there are a couple of things. We'll develop a grant work plan and budget. In order to disperse funds, we will need backup documentation. You will need to complete an activities report. There will be closeout documentations, the case study, a production tracker, match. And just be aware that you should keep your files for at least 3 years after grant closeout, because all grant awards are subject to random selection to be reviewed by our internal auditors. So just be aware of that. This is just a list of things that will be required if you are awarded a grant. Also, grants guide that's available online if you have any additional questions. And then again, just some quick reminders. All these documents are on our website. You can only submit one proposal. Applicants can only apply under one program area. Remember, you have to meet all the threshold requirements, answer all the 5 questions in the LOI narrative, complete the LOI online submission form, and you must submit by May 31st at 7 p.m. Central Time. So it says Eastern Time, but just remember, 7 p.m. Central Time. Anything after that will not be accepted or reviewed. So make sure you get in on time, direct 7 p.m. Central Time. And then some important dates, May 31st. And then ask back for a full application. You would be notified by July 10th. And then your full application would be by August 7th, and periods would start around September 1st. And then questions. Do that quickly, but I know some of it was redundant, and if you really reviewed the LOI, all that information is in the LOI, but like I said, I think the big takeaways are just making sure that you're looking at this grant from the right lens, that it's a capacity building grant. So think capacity building grant, thinking about the thresholds, make sure your organization meets those thresholds. Whatever project or program you're applying for serves low-income households, which we are considering as 80% AMI or below. And carefully look at what you would like to charge to Section 4, is it eligible, is it ineligible, and think through a grant performance period of starting in September 1st. So I think those are big takeaways, but I just want to make sure that as our Gulf Coast partners, that you have the understanding so you could be competitive in this process. Because as I did mention, we do receive a high volume, but only can usually fund about a fourth of those. So there is a Q&A box on the right-hand corner. Anybody have any questions? I think everyone's muted right now, so all questions have to go through the Q&A box.
Yeah, we have one. So it says, the LOI announcement showed an amount to be awarded of $7.9 million. Is there allocated to Gulf Coast, and is it subdivided by geography and or program area?
So each geography does have an expected amount. We don't have a set amount, but we are sharing this with 13 other markets. Also, the one thing I can say is that it's definitely not allocated by program area. We do not have a set amount for program area, and that's why I said probably between 8 to 12 grants, just depending. But it is a highly competitive process. I would say think of yourself as your toughest competition, because although other people from national staff will be reviewing these, we are reviewing these based on your own LOI. Any questions? I say that if you were not able to attend yesterday's general webinar, and even if you were able to attend, the grants department is updating a regular FAQ. So I think there were some really interesting questions yesterday's webinar, and all those will be included in the FAQ, which should be updated by tomorrow. So I would check back the website and look at those frequently asked questions, and to make sure, that something you hadn't thought about is included in there. Okay, last questions? Okay, you have my contact information. If you have just general compliance questions, that can go to rfp@enterprisecommunity.org. If you have more questions about any specific program areas, that should be directed to me, mgonzalez@enterprisecommunity.org. So thank you everyone for joining, and good luck. And hopefully we'll see some applications come through.